Well, good evening to India, good morning to Colorado, and good day to the rest of you. We're here today to talk about the details for day one of our time together when we have the gates open and are allowed to gather in Tehran. Jason's promise was you will own everything. So we're sitting at Phil's Coffee place here in Corte Madera, and we're talking about it. What should we do? And he said, well, we've got to make sure that they own everything. How do we do that? And I thought, and I said, hey, Jason, you remember the most annoying thing about writing that international bestseller that we did, our first one? And he said, annoying? Let me help you remember, Jason. We're being interviewed and they say, hi, it's such a clever title. Tell us again the title of the book. The title of the book is, it's not the big that eat the small, it's the fast that eat the slow. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. That's so clever. We really like that. Hey, here's my big question for you. What's the one thing that people should take away from that book? What's the one, really the one important thing that they should take away from that book? Jason said, I don't know. There's like 40 huge lessons that are extremely important. No. What's the one thing though? The one thing. Well, I could give you the top 5. No, tell me the one thing. And so we sat there after condensing thousands of aha moments into one easy to read book. And all they wanted was the one thing. And it sounded like they wanted one thing so that they didn't have to bother reading the book. And that was so annoying for all the work that we had done. And he said, yeah, that was annoying. I said, so to answer your question this morning here, how do we give them everything? We give them the one thing, the single solitary thing that led to and delivered everything for us. Tens of millions of dollars in sales for us, and hundreds of millions of dollars in sales for our clients. It gave us an unparalleled education in business. It gave us every single idea, every spark of genius in 7 books. It gave us a wide open door to the world's greatest leaders and CEOs who simply sat and told us everything. It gave us alliances, partners, clients. It gave us a huge international speaking and keynote career. It gave us the most incredible friendships that enriched our lives. It gave us solutions, actual things that worked for hiring the right people, getting the perfect fit so that we were able to generate more speed, more growth, more productivity, a better culture, and happiness for everyone involved. It was the one thing that allowed us to lead thousands of people to their full potential. So what is the agenda for day one? As annoying as that question was, it's the one thing that delivered everything for us, and I'm going to, along with everyone that's there, give it to you. So that's it. That's the agenda for the day. We have guests with us today. We have Patty Panzer, we have Jagit, we have Indranil, we have Guntas, and they're here to ask questions so that I'm clear, because a lot of times I forget a detail or two, and you have to forgive me, but 95 days without a haircut, and I don't feel smart enough to be able to cover everything. And plus, I love extra voices because they help us out. Who wants to ask the first question? Oh, Patty, and then Jaggeet will be second. Go ahead.
So this is great, and I'm a little behind sometimes on the WhatsApp conversations because of being a little consumed with work at the moment. But I did see some conversation about day one being about trust. And so maybe that's where we're going with this, and I hope it is. And I would love to know how you're thinking of departing this information and the lessons that you and Jason learned over the years on day one.
Yeah, well, I did put that information about trust yesterday because part of opening all those doors was the fact that people trusted us. And part of you being able to do all the things that you want to do in your future is that you can gain fast trust and really very comprehensive trust with a wide variety of people. So definitely that is a byproduct of what we're going to do on the first day. What the day is it's called discovery. Now, in the early days, what we did was a thing where we were out there in the late 70s and early 80s. And what we were doing was what was called the diagnostic, where you would meet with a client and you took much more in your mind of having a conversation that allowed them to reveal to you where their needs were, where the problems existed, and how those things affected their success and how those things had economic value to them, particularly if they were solved. And that was our job in those days. But we discovered that that process of diagnostic was good, but so much more came out of it. And what came out of that diagnostic was what we started to call the discovery. Because you see, we would talk to people and we would have these conversations and they would never want them to end. And they would say things like, oh, I'm going to go, because it's now 7 o'clock. Oh my God, we started talking at 5. Well, I'm going to go and why don't you come out to the house and I'm going to barbecue some steaks. And we're out there, we've got a really nice view from the front of the house at the green grass of Kentucky. And there's horses and other things. It's really nice, you'll love it. But I want to keep talking to you. I want to tell you other things. And we said, oh my gosh, this is not consultant sell. This is not simply a visit to the doctor or diagnostic for 15 minutes. This is like a discovery and they don't want it to end. They're discovering things, I'm discovering things. It's incredible. And so it became this awesome experience for us. So in that, what we did, as was our nature, was we then began to systematize it. How can we do this? How can we show it to other people? And how can we know all the little steps that lead to the big reveals? So part of that was figuring out, as I mentioned in the post, figuring out, okay, what are the skills and disciplines that truly show others that you're really listening? And we detailed those and we practiced them and then we owned them down and got to the few that were absolutely essential. How do you explain to people that you share their values? How do you show them that you're a person that worries about accuracy? How do you ask terrific questions, not just questions, but questions that make them say, oh my God, that's a really good question. And how do you make them think so that they have the confidence that they're talking to somebody who really offers value to them? And all of that was a part of our discovery system. So I take all of that and I figure out through a variety of devices how I can share that with you. Anybody have another question? I may have left something unsaid. Jaggeet, you had your hand up a second ago.
I'm sitting on my table and I've got about maybe 200 books on my table here. mostly on sales and marketing. And with, the- with now the scene being absolutely changed, where we are not supposed to travel, where we are not kind of having one-to-one interaction with the customers, where all those earlier things like relationship, listening to the customer one-to-one, sitting with him, understanding his needs, gauging out of his or her facial expressions, body language, all that is now gone. Now, there was a certain amount of trust which normally you would build with the person sitting opposite to you uh, because there was physical presence. So now how do you handle all this through a remote mechanism
Yeah.
is
And
something which I am looking forward to, that yes, we will have answers to those. And remotely, how do you create value?
yes, well, it is the challenge, right, of this time. Yeah, we have been limited, as you said, quite clearly, and it's true, that personal interaction allows you to read signals, it allows you to get the feel, it allows so many things for you to project and also for you to receive. It's a huge part of communication, and we do need that back. But I suggest to you that this exercise that we've been going through these last couple of months, where I have been talking with a number of your colleagues, Indranil can speak to this in a second because I call on him next, but I've been having those conversations both via Zoom, and I've also had some on WhatsApp that were just purely audio. And I want to tell you, just the other day when I had a significant one with Patricia Jones, she said to me, I think about 35 minutes into our conversation, she said, oh my God, this is like a therapy session. A therapy session. I said, no. This is not a therapy session. I'm just curious. I just want to know. But she was tying in her childhood, tying it into her goals, tying it in. What I'm trying to say is, as we develop our skills, and I'm going to give you an exercise to do now so that when we get together, those skills are more developed than they ever would have been had we not done this simple, easy exercise. But as we develop those skills, all of a sudden, you can take one personal interaction and turn it into 20 less personal interactions, and they're still hugely impactful. Or in the case like with Patricia Jones, we've never met. And yet the questions, the listening, I mean, check with her, see what her reaction is. Or ask, we'll talk to Indranil in just a second. He can tell you about he and I had Zoom calls and also with his wife. But yes, there are things about this that magically occur even in the most limited communication spaces. So that will come. That is going to happen. Indranil?
Yes, they do happen. And in our case, it was simply because of a shared connection that we had of having met and known Jason. Obviously, Lawrence knew him for a far longer time than I did. I, in fact, just met him once, and we had a beautiful meeting in Bengaluru, facilitated by Jagjit Singh Ji at BFW. So that was the interaction that happened after that with him on email, on phone, etc. That somewhat that kind of set the tone. And later on, when you and I connected, there was something we knew that we already have a foundation ready, a big something to build upon. And it just took off from there. The first Zoom call we had, I think we spoke for 3 hours, something like that. If you will, I have 3 questions, but we can decide whether to take all 3 or one after the other. We can decide that. So first thing that I would like to know is, what is the purpose of this summit? Not of day 1, 2, 3. Because I know one part is sharing all the knowledge that you guys have. But I've been thinking about it, and it sounds to me as if there are at least 2 paths from there. One reason is for you to share this knowledge is because you have all this wisdom and with you, all this data that you have with you, and you want to give it away to people whom you feel who can carry on the legacy in whichever way they choose. That's one. But the other is that maybe the people whom you have selected to become part of this summit all of us knowingly or unknowingly have something in common, or maybe groups of us have in common, and we can. And since I heard you mention in your first update Wednesday that the objective is to make this thing grow. So, is there a specific purpose that we have to tie and that we can tie it all with?
Yes, there is, and the purpose is, first of all, to live up to his promise of sharing everything. But the second part of it is, if there's one thing that was left undone that we want to do, and that we were both talking about doing, and that was the purpose of this, was to expand this as if you threw a rock into a pond, and the circle is this big, and then it's this big, and then it's this big. And that was something that we played with, we tried, we toyed with, we had some success, we had some not success, and we took it and veered off that path. And it was more of just the conversation. So we took off, we got back on it, and what Jason wanted to do with this was he wanted to say, let's really devote ourselves to it. Let's mentor others as we were mentored. Let's share this and see it grow. Now we know it's not going to grow with controls. It's going to grow with freedom. It's going to grow with people seeing what they see and taking it further, and then combining our paths together to help them achieve what they want to achieve, to help them hit the goals that they have in mind, just faster. That's my end, is how can we do this faster? Your end is, I want to go here, I want to go there. So the plan is to do that, and I believe that there will be a confederation, a colleagueship, a group, and we will draw from each other both thoughts and assistance and maybe even project work, but things where we can enrich each other in making it grow. My hope is we do one, and the next time we do a follow-on, and even then invite new people to the beginning. Like Frederick said, why a tree? Let's make an orchard.
But I hope I'm audible.
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I was just thoroughly enjoying the conversation because, as Jagjit mentioned that since everything has become remote now and everyone has to be working from their own spaces and they're not moving out. So personally, for my field, I've been benefiting a lot from that because I'm a budding counselor and I am providing therapy sessions over call and over video conferencing to people. And most of the people who come up, who have been laid off from work or who have been finding it difficult to, adjust with, their schedules have been thrown out of whack and they're just finding it difficult to cope with it. So I think it would be, this would be a very good space for me to provide a different perspective to everyone present over there, and also learn from them and apply it to my practice as to how I can be helping other people at this time.
And find out, by the way, Dan is a good one for this because he's been at it about since 1978. And he said, look, I took this, Dan Charleston, he's in the Cayman Islands now. I took this to every aspect of my careers. And he said, let me tell you all the different things that I use the exact same discovery process and the exact same learning and built on it, but I took it to all these other things. And that is the most important thing, is this is a universal.
Well, I also have a comment versus a question at the moment. And that is how it's interesting, as difficult as some things have been recently, there are also so many silver linings. And I think that this is a silver lining in that even the extension of this time, because by now we would have been several months beyond the summit. But instead, and I think that, when we were preparing and doing our assignments for the summit, even the introductions, honing our introductions, imagining that we were going to be giving those introductions at the summit, I envisioned, and I used to teach English and speech years ago in a previous life, but I used to have to time things, right? So if each of us were taking 4 or 5, 6 minutes to do an introduction, that's practically a day that's gone by the time everyone has given their introduction, and how important it is to meet each other and know something about each other, our backgrounds, et cetera. That's so important. And yet I can see how that could have taken a good portion, perhaps even a third of the summit time. So now that we're doing that on video, using Zoom and other technologies to do that, and we're getting these this terrific path now that is so similar but different from Jason's partner, from his lifelong business partner, who was there every step of the way, leading the way with research and every conversation, refining the material that went into those books. Just a thrill. And thank you so much for that, Lawrence, really, LH.
Okay, the second question actually that I have is, the starting of this entire thing began with you guys mentioning that you guys will be sharing $100 million worth of IPR knowledge with all of us. Now, if now the format is changing into something like we will be doing our own things, discussions, each one teach one, etc., etc. Where do we get to fit all that? Because I remember in one of the early videos that you did shortly after Jason's passing, you mentioned about him leaving you to do a session at a corporate place all alone. And I heard you use some words like the Jennings system, the X system, the Y system, something like that. I had assumed that the summit involves something like this, that kind of knowledge transfer as well. So is that going to be part of the summit? And if yes, then where do we fit it in?
Yes, good. Just yesterday, Paul Jensen, one of our colleagues, said, I would like to do my presentation on the subject of culture. And I said, well, that's great. Do you have a particular chapter or segment of one of the books that you were thinking would be fertile ground for this your presentation on culture? And he said, no, I could, do you have some suggestions for me? And I said, absolutely, love to share it. It's all yours. I'm on the case. It's not going to be Jason delivering it, no, but there's a richness to people's perspective. And when you listen to that, plus we have the writings in the book that we created, you are going to have an even better picture than if it was just him talking and you listening. So I think that's how it's going to work, combined with what I will do for the wrap up of every single segment to make sure that it tails back into all the things that we know. And that's what he was going to have me do 15 minutes at the end of every hour anyway. So without him there, okay, now apply the same skills, but with each person. I think it's going to be richer. I know it's going to be better. I want to tell you about your assignment, because Indranil asked me about getting together with some people, and that's what led me to this conclusion. Here's the assignment. I would like you to do this. It would really help if you did this. You will gain so much more out of day one if you do this. Please do this. Let me say that clearly. Here it is. It's very easy. I want you to choose 5 people. They can be acquaintances. They could be clients. They could be siblings. They could be elders. It doesn't matter who the 5 people are. I want you to choose 5 people, and I want you to ask them if you could have 10 minutes of their time, that you're going to learn some very new skills and that are going to help you in your future, and you just need 10 minutes of their time is going to help you really gain a lot. And in that 10 minutes, hello there, you're only going to ask one question. So you don't have to prepare for the 10 minutes. It's going to be one question. It will be very, very easy. I'm going to ask you one question. And the question that you're going to ask them is this. Here's the question. You're going to ask 5 people this question. One question. Would you tell me your story? Start at the beginning. I was born in ... Now, you ask that question. Some people will launch into, 25 minutes of their life. Other people will say, oh, I was born in Buffalo. And they'll stop. That's okay. You don't need another question. You just need to sit there and say, Buffalo? Yeah, upstate New York. I was only there for 8 years and then I moved. You see what happened? You're not going to need more than one question because your curiosity is going to drive them to tell you. And here's what you're aiming for in these 5 conversations. You don't have to share this immediately, but I want you to aim towards one thing. Figure out and listen to them until you can tell other people like me about them, making them sound unique, like the only person in the world who's like them. So what you're looking for in these 5 conversations is nothing more than them to tell you their story. And you're looking for nothing more than for you to use your natural curiosity. And by the way, in the first one, it'll be a little tenser than it will be in the third one. It'll get very easy. And oh my gosh, none of them are going to take 10 minutes. They're all going to talk for probably 30 at least. And they're going to say, and you're going to say, well, I've got some really great things here. Thank you for doing this with me. They say, 10 minutes is up already? And you're going to say, well, actually, it's been a half an hour. But yeah, that's it. So that's the assignment I have for everyone. If you will do that, the day that we spend together in day 1 is going to exponentially be that much better for you.
Love it.
Works for you?
Oh.
Indranil, you asked me about meeting with some people that were on this group. You can use people that are on this group too. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who it is. Does not matter. What do you think?
Great. And this is something which I had thought of doing shortly after Jason's passing. As one of the learning things for me. So it works. It's great that this is now an exercise formally.
Jagit? Kuntas?
Okay.
Sound good?
Yes. My thought is a little related to this. What I was thinking was, can we think of about 10, 12, 15 subjects? And each one of us carries one story related to that particular aspect. And then it is going to be, I don't know, about 30 of them, assuming that we are 30 of us. So it's going to be a humongous encyclopedia of about 300 stories. And those stories can be from different segments. It could be psychology, it could be related to sales, it could be related to some other subjects, it could be related to trust, it could be related to listening, it could be related to speed, it could be related to execution, it could be related to feedback. So, and post that, can we create the best of these, can we create a book form as a takeaway from this session, 2-day session or 3-day session?
Well, it's a great idea. Again, let me tie it back to what the purpose of day 1 is. The ability to ask these kinds of questions is what gave us the stories that drove the books. The learning of how to do discovery meetings is what opened people up to tell us things that they had never told anyone before. They gave us the trust for them to open their door and let us hear all of these things. So yes, to the bigger idea that you have, let me put that to paper and think about it with you, because I know how you like to collect stories and stories. You should see my file folders, tons of them. And yes, from everybody and their perspective, it's a fantastic idea. Finishing up, we are at about 35 minutes into this, and I promised Bonnie I would do it in 30, so I've already failed her, but not too bad.
Just that, it's a very, very good idea that we'll be, asking about people's stories and developing the skill of, articulating stories ourselves in a way that it makes, it makes us connect with people on a whole new level.
Don't be afraid, please. One question. Would you tell me your story? Start at the beginning. I was born in, and that's it. Curiosity after that, your learning will go up exponentially. I want to thank you. We're going to ring off our recording, and we'll still be here together if there's anything further, but we are going to ring off our recording in promises we had to Bonnie in getting this done. That's the idea for day one. More details will follow. Thank you all for watching this, and have a good day.